The super familiar with the Wilsons podcast. You know that family whose house you hung out in when you were a kid? The house was a little loud and chaotic, but always fun, and sometimes felt more home than home. Well, that's us.
We're the Wilsons, and we welcome you into our podcast with silly chat, ridiculous games, and interviews with interesting people.
Like a spin doctor. The super familiar with the Wilsons podcast.
Welcome home.
This podcast contains strong language and adult situations and may not be suitable for those who are easily offended.
Welcome to Fuck My Work Life's Afternoon Break, a quick getaway from your daily grind. Step away from whatever you're doing, grab your favorite beverage, put your feet up, and enjoy.
Welcome back, fuckers. Today's special guest, we have Brendan from UnChefed. How's it going, Brendan?
Hi, Brendan.
Hey, good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
Oh, you had such a good time the last time, you know?
Oh my gosh, we had so much fun.
What happened?
I know exactly. That's
about right.
Yeah.
That's the exact right thing to say.
We're all sober this morning, so.
Yeah.
You see the more responsible side of our personalities.
Yeah, it'll just be real boring. And no, I'm just kidding.
Droll.
Mine doesn't really change much. It
okay.
does a little bit.
Your eyes are open like the same degree.
I slur my words a bit more in the regular podcast.
Yeah.
I feel like you get a lot more chatty too.
Oh, yeah.
You'll go on long diatribes.
You guys want to talk about bacon for like an hour?
I still have to post that on our Patreon.
I was going through the cabinet today because I have a buddy at work on his lunch break went to Costco and bought 3 pork bellies, a pork butt, a brisket, and came back. And his brother who works there didn't want the pork belly. So he gave it to me. And I was like,
Sweet.
Okay, my wife's going to kick you, but.
So let's not go on a
yeah,
bacon
so I have
thing
to.
again. No.
I was going through the cabinet trying to find my cure, and I couldn't find it.
You'll notice, Kay, the hearts. Like I wanted to respond to that story so bad, but I shut up. There was silence on my end. I was like, "No, be good. Stay in the right
job,
direction."
Brendan.
So anyway, with this bacon, no, I'm kidding. With this round of bacon.
Oy. So Brendan, why don't you tell us about UnChefed, your podcast?
You know, I've been working on the 10-word pitch of what our show actually is. And I feel like it keeps changing because it's about food and food stories that me and the other co-host, Matt, find interesting. So I think what we've kind of landed on is that our show is just about what you eat and kind of the hidden side of it, how it came to become, a part of your life, maybe some of the interesting alternate reality worlds we could be living in if it weren't for some of the policy decisions that were made. There was a period where we thought that hippo was going to be one of the main meat sources in this country as opposed to cows. And
oh wow.
We find little stories like that. And yeah, it was something that was endorsed by Teddy Roosevelt, actually. So early 1900s. We have a whole episode on it, but me and Matt find little stories like that kind of make us think twice about what it is that you're eating and why you're eating it, and how it connects you to other people and history and policy. So, and we have a lot of fun doing it. We also tell a lot of fart jokes. we try to be really, really academic and well researched, but we also really don't want to sound stuffy or put offish. So
Yeah.
That's kind of, in a nutshell, what we do.
I think you guys pull that off really well.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
I'm always, whenever I listen to your episodes, it's just wow, I've said this before, but you guys sound so smart. And the things you're talking about, I would have even thought of, but then you do it in such a relatable way that makes it fun and interesting. Yeah.
It's really, really kind words, but I mean, I think that's just, when you like what you do, then that passion kind of starts coming out, and I think that we've gotten a lot of positive response from people that can hear that this is something that really drives us, really drives the way that we think. It really drives the way that we put an episode together, is just the joy that we find around, exploring the mysteries, the hidden juicy details, if you will, behind, the food that we eat and how we get our hands on it. So
The reason you're here today is you've got maybe another work story for us you want to share.
Yeah, I was trying to think about it. Like, one of the worst parts about being a chef is like a lot of your work stories are just sad. It's like, and I ignored my kid on Christmas for the second time. Like, it's like it's just not the kind of story that you want to tell without a little bit of subtext. So I was like, well, what is that subtext? What is it? Being a chef makes it okay to have like all these terrible stories. And I started thinking about the positives. And I remember when I first started working at Sambar, I was being trained on this station, and the person who was training me was, pretty big on like the celebrities that came into the restaurant, because it was a pretty big deal restaurant and a lot of famous people came through, and it was something that was important to him, and that was like his benefit. Like, that's why he put the time in, was like he thought it was cool to be like rubbing elbows with the elites. And he was telling me this story, I guess trying to get me enthused about the job. I was going to be working the oyster station, just kind of like a front GM thing. We did like the raw cured fish dishes and the oysters and, various other interesting preparations. It took way too long to make and were way too complicated. But he was trying to tell me one of his favorite stories. And I don't know if this is true, but I thought it was funny enough to just pass along, just the fact that somebody told me this is like a training thing, that he was working the station one day, and he didn't realize it, but Morgan Freeman had walked up to the oyster station. There's like this little glass bar that's in between you and the dining room, so it can be pretty personal if somebody comes up and starts talking to you. It's not a lot of space in between you and the guest. But he wasn't paying attention. He didn't know that Morgan Freeman had walked up. Again, this is all according to him, until he heard that like very familiar Morgan Freeman voice saying,
Hello,
"Hey,
Andy.
can I have one of those?" And he said, he thought this was funny. I think the mental imagery is hilarious. He looks up at Radofker, Chef Matt Radofker, who was the chef at the time, and says like, "Hey chef, can I give Morgan Freeman an oyster?" and he said that Chef Radofker, and this is like totally in keeping with his personality, is like, "No, you can't feed Morgan Freeman an oyster." And like, I think about that story a lot. It's not like a personal story from me, but I like the mental imagery of it sort of being like, Morgan Freeman just standing there like begging for an oyster, and like the two, the chef and the cook who was training me, both being like, he's on the other side of this glass wall, like, can I feed the celebrities, like, can I, like, it's like a celebrity zoo. And that was sort of like, I think for him, that's what was kind of cool about it, was like being on the other side of this glass panel and seeing all these other people, and you're sort of like couched in this almost bunker that's got culture flying around it in every direction, and you're in it with like this spec ops team of like really talented cooks that are just like going to war to try and make them happy. And I guess that's kind of that's the majority of my story, but I wanted to add one more thing. Like, the positives for me was, you're a part of the spec ops and you got all this like really great stuff behind you. And again, I'm thinking like, how do I not just tell the sad story of being a chef and the 80 hours and the not getting to eat or go to the bathroom like when you need to for hours at a time, and like, what are the positives? And I think about like that guy and what his positive was and how it was like, being at the center of this cultural thing. And then I think about what my positive was. And I think back to the same chef, Matthew Radofker. I'm like standing next to him, giving him a dish to be sent out to somebody. And he looks at me, and then he takes this little tiny offset spatula and picks up like half a golf ball's worth of Osetra. I think it was Osetra caviar, and just like slobs it on my hand. And I'm like looking down at it, and this is like $100 worth of caviar. And I'm like looking at my hand, and then I look up at him like with this dumb look on my face, and he looks at me with this very stern look on his face, like, "What the fuck are you doing? Eat it." Like, it's going bad on your hand. And I'm like, "For me, chef?" And he's like, "Get the fuck out of here." And like, so like I go away and I'm like licking my hand, like just licking all the Osetra caviar, and I hear from behind me, "You're fucking welcome."
Did he take it off the plate you presented him, or he just had it?
No, he just had
okay.
it. Like that was a thing. Like the chef, especially at a place like Sambar and how it was, there's a pass that the chef usually sits at,
Mhm.
and they've got like all the really fancy garnishes, like the final hits of salt, the final hits of like olive oil. If you're going to shave truffles on, they've got like a little tiny scale to like make sure that they're not giving you an accidental additional $50 worth of truffle shavings,
Oh my
so
gosh.
they're kind of like managing those high value
Mm.
Yeah.
ingredients right there at the end. So he had like a little thing of caviar. And I think it was because we didn't always have caviar. We had it occasionally. And I think at this point they were like playing around with this dish that was very high value and lowbrow at the same time. It was like a fried chicken with like expensive caviar on
Oh
it.
my god.
which sounds kind of crazy because like nobody would think to pair something that costs like, a couple $100 an ounce with like something you get a box of
$3
for like $6 and
Yeah.
crown fried chicken. Like you wouldn't typically pair those two things together, but we did, and it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So, but I guess that's my story. So I'm gonna be giving you a shorter one today.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So like this was the head chef guy, right? But he doesn't really do a lot of the cooking, right? He designs the menu
he's-
and then kind of oversees everyone.
Yeah, so an executive chef which is what he was. Like Chang was obviously at the top, and then Chang hired a chef to run his restaurants. And that role was the chef de cuisine role, which is under the executive chef. And then under the chef de cuisine is the sous chef. And then under the sous chef is like chef de partie. Yeah, so what the executive chef would do is kind of conceptualize a dish for the menu and then do a lot of the testing to see if the dish works. Because like a dish doesn't just like, you don't wake up one morning and be like, aha, I'm going to do this dish and then have it on the menu that night. It takes like a couple of weeks of making sure that like all the kinks are worked out of it, like that it can be, produced effectively. So that's essentially what the executive chef does while managing the team and like checking quality. Like you'll go from one station and be like, what are you doing? And then you'll hear what they have to say and you're like, it sounds like you're fucking up, or good job.
Here's some caviar.
Here's some caviar. Exactly. So yeah, that's essentially what it goes. And they're also responsible for making sure that, costs are in line. With any restaurant, you have two controllable costs: your labor and your food cost. And ultimately the executive chef is where the buck stops on that one. Like you can delegate out managing your bottom line to sous chefs or CDCs, but ultimately you're the one who's responsible for your own numbers, because you're the one who's kind of delegating where the profit that goes back into the business gets allocated. So ultimately it's on you to keep the numbers where they need to be in order to justify the allocations that you decide.
Interesting. And then, so like David Chang in that situation, it's just his name.
He was, back when I was there, he was coming in pretty frequently, and it was never fun when he did. Like he would always, so you go in knowing that you're just going to get your ass kicked for like 12 hours. Like you walk in and like you're stressed from the second you like step into the locker room until the second you leave. Sometimes you learn how to manage that stress. Some people did, some people didn't learn how to manage it better. But the fact is that it's just a constant push. You're at war from the second you step in until the second you leave. And the second you see on any given day, your boss, who's also a celebrity, historically known for being just like, a hothead that blows up at people, putting his apron on in the kitchen, you're just like, oh, damn.
There goes my day.
He's going to be
There
here
goes
all
my
day.
And like, it almost becomes like, that old, like kind of joke adage about like, if you and a friend are being chased by a cheetah, you don't need to be able to run faster than the cheetah. You just need to be able to run faster than your friend.
Yeah.
Like, that one. That's kind of what happens whenever he shows up. You're just like quietly trying to trip people around you so that because once he picks somebody to zero in on, that's like he sort of sticks with that person for the whole day. Yeah, it's awful. He'll like stand next to your cutting board and just be like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? For like 8 hours. And you're just like, oh God, like this is awful. And nobody wants it. So everybody's kind of like, almost like lemmings trying to push the first person off the cliff. So that,
Yeah.
That just makes for a great work culture.
I was going to lead into that
Yeah.
question. Like when someone like that comes in and you know that they're going to zero in on someone, is there like sabotage that goes on?
Not directly, but it's also like you're not trying to hide it. Like if, say, somebody dropped an egg on the floor, for instance.
Who would do that?
Jared dropped an egg.
Yeah, you just be like, hey, everybody, there's an egg here. Can somebody please clean that egg? And hope that Chang sees you being like, leading the kitchen, be like, good, that person's trying to keep the kitchen clean. Now who dropped that egg? And then you
Oh, that sounds awful.
It does.
It really, really was. It really was. That's why it's like hard to it's a very big part of my upbringing. It's a part of my skill set. It's a part of my experience. I don't run from it or anything, but like when it comes to making a podcast and talking about good shows, I'm like, and this time I didn't eat for 4 hours. You know, It's like those work stories can get kind of like dark if you don't find like the positives in them. If you don't find the caviar on the fried chicken,
Right.
on the back of your hand.
Yeah.
Caviar on the back of your hand.
My sweaty, like dirty hand.
I feel like that should be some sort of motivational saying. Just think of the caviar on the back
Just think
of your hand.
caviar on the back of your hand. That actually is kind of cool. Maybe I should make like shirts for that or something.
There you go.
Yeah. That'd be
It's like a
awesome.
cartoon.
Merch
drawing.
idea.
Yeah, a collaborative merch idea between
There you go.
Fuck My Work Life and
A cartoon
UnChefed.
drawing of Brendan's face back there, eyes big, and his hand in front of him, and like a dollop of caviar.
That does strike quite the image.
And underneath it'll just say, "You're fucking welcome."
You know, we're saying this sort of joking around, but I kind of like it. I think I would wear that.
I would totally wear that.
Nobody would get it either. Like people that weren't
No.
listeners to the show, they would just see the picture and be like, what is
What
that?
the fuck?
What does that mean?
Did a bird shit on your hand? What is that?
Man, I kind of like this. This is a really productive conversation.
Yeah. Good collaboration.
Oh God.
Good collab.
Oh, I'm happy you brought us a more positive story today. I like that. We
Yeah.
kind of veered it off in a different direction with our questions, but
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Well,
brought some positivity.
I think when, from our first conversation with Brendan and then doing his podcast with him, we've heard, and you also see it on TV, like the nightmares that working in like
Kitchen,
a high-end kitchen like
Mhm.
that is. And like when you get the chance to talk to someone who's been there, it's hard not to want to make
those
them go
questions.
to those dark places. Like,
yeah. Yeah. No.
tell
I
me
understand.
everything fucked up about everything you've ever done.
Yeah. No. I understand that. I get that a lot. I've kind of coasted on that a little bit throughout my career. It's been inarguably something that's benefited me, is like kind of playing off of that intrigue that people have coming from
Mhm.
a kitchen that's as renowned as one of David Chang's early kitchens. Like that's I would be lying to say, like, I wouldn't be this comfortable guy with a podcasting hobby if I hadn't have, made that choice. And then also, importantly, subsequently made the choice to get out of it and start trying to use my story, my personal narrative, to build my own career profile, or career path, rather. Like if I had stayed in those environments, like some people do, I'd probably just be like a twisted, broken shell of a human with no friends or family. But
Yeah.
I was able to take that story and leverage it into something better for my life.
You took that caviar on the back of the hand.
Fucking
Oh my God, you got there first. I was taking a very dramatic sip of my water, and I was going to be like that caviar.
Oh shit, I
And you
ruined
were
it.
just
Sorry.
No, you were right there with me. I never look a gift simpatico in the mouth.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find your podcast?
Sure. So the regular places: Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, Google. I try to steer people away from Spotify just because they've been engaging in some shenanigans.
Mhm.
I'm
That's
sure
what
you
I've
heard
heard.
about the
The
wild turkey thing. Yeah, where they put
Yeah.
advertisements on our feed. And I'm not going to sit here and try to lambast them or anything, but you accidentally put advertising on our RSS feeds that we worked
Mhm.
hard with our audience, that we worked hard to build a rapport with. And then you get advertising for a certain amount of time. They made some revenue off of that. And
Of
that number
course.
is never going to be disclosed. It's never going to be given to us. And that's textbook taking advantage. It's not
Yeah.
like, I don't view it as being the biggest deal, but it's also like, I don't really want to direct people to Spotify directly.
Yeah.
It's all you have. You can find us there. Good pods, obviously, where you guys are the king and queen, basically.
Nah, we've been dethroned, which is fine. It's kind of
Yeah.
less pressure.
Yeah,
dethroned
yeah,
us.
you're at the number one spot for quite a while, though.
Yeah.
I don't know how either.
Yeah, I
I'm just
don't-
like, okay.
Hey, it's like Field of Dreams. You build it, they'll come.
Yeah.
You got a good product. People pay money for a good product.
Who's paying money? I got no money.
Speaking of which, Fuck My Work Life has a Patreon account.
That's right.
Oh, we do.
We have one patron.
Yep.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So did you finish where everyone could find you?
I guess there is the social media. Like, as you know, I'm like the flakiest social media person. I'll be like really headstrong in it for a couple of weeks, and then I'll just disappear for a couple of weeks. It's in my nature, I guess. But you can find me on Twitter at UnChefed, and then also on Instagram, which I don't think I've done anything for a while, at UnChefed Show. So I guess don't look for me on Instagram. I don't know, but follow me on Twitter. I'm a delight, I think. So.
Instagram's kind of going the way of Facebook. I'm kind of
Should
shying
promote
away
that
from
opinion on Reality Records.
Yeah. Yeah. That, and then you're scrolling through, and I barely see people I follow anymore. It's like sponsored ad,
Mhm.
sponsored ad, reel of people I don't follow, and I'm like, this is
Yeah.
stupid. But anywho, Twitter's still cool.
Twitter's still cool.
Twitter's still cool. You put together an awesome little podcast group we've named the Brain Trust, and
The Brain Trust.
it's
Yeah.
been a lot of fun.
Just such a great group of people. It really is.
Everyone, go listen to UnChefed. Have a good day. Bye, fuckers.
Bye, fuckers.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thanks, Brendan.
I also would like to say goodbye to you fuckers.
That's right.
Have a great day. Thanks for having me on.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining our afternoon break. If you have a workplace story, email it to fmwlpod@gmail.com or call our rant line at 310-818-3273.
Please follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss out on new episodes. And if you're enjoying the show, take a moment to rate and review.
You can find us on all the socials at FMWLpod. Come say hello and check out all our amazing indie podcast friends. Until next time, bye, fuckers. I don't know about you, but with a busy work schedule, I never have time to sit down and read. Luckily, there's Newsly. Newsly is an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android. It picks up articles about the most trending topics on the web and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time ever, the entire web becomes listenable, all in one place. You can browse articles from topics you choose and just start playing. Follow specific topics from sports, tech, business, science, or Bitcoin. Newsly will find you the latest articles and read them aloud. They even have digital radio. And do you want to know the best part? They have podcasts. Explore trending podcasts from over 80 countries. And you can find our podcast, Fuck My Work Life, there too. Download and try Newsly for free by visiting www.newsly.me or clicking on the link in our show notes. And be sure to use promo code FWL for a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling and start listening with Newsly.